for performances like this. You can check out the wall as you leave, and you can find out about classes and galleries and all kinds of other events. We do try to be very green, so that means saving money as well as saving trees. So we'd love to have your email. If you make sure that you put that on the clipboard outside, we promise we will never share it with anybody, and we won't bombard you, but it's a great way to keep you up to date on the things that we're doing. Now, there is no recording of any kind, and if you have cell phones or beepers, this would be a great time to turn them off. The last rule is have a wonderful time. I'd like to welcome Ellen Snock, Director of the company. She'll tell us a little more. Are there any empty seats? One,
Got
two,
one.
and one up there?
I think we got one here. She's not using it. There's one here. She's not using
And
it.
one there. Well, but you want to stay together, right? Yes. All right. Would you just keep that in your try to get okay. So this has been a very exciting project for us. I worked with Baibre McCarthy a few years back. She was an amazing Irish storyteller of Irish legends and so forth. And I'm very excited about this project. We will take you through the travels of the Celts today. One of the things that I would like to mention is that in our finale, we are going, children in the audience, how many do we have here? Raise your hand. Or if you're a child at heart, maybe. All right. We actually have an idea in our heads that we would like to invite some of any of the children that want to come down and onto the stage during the finale and to do things with the dancers, things that you've seen in the stories. Okay? If you don't want to, that's fine. If we don't get enough children raising their hands, we may invite some adults to consider. We're not going to ask you to do anything horribly difficult, but it will be a lot of fun. We tried this last night in our opening rehearsal, and I was amazed at all the adults that came down and were jumping into the lake and so forth and so on. So you can just think about that. Baibre McCarthy will guide you. She'll let you know when we're getting to that point, and to raise your hand if you want to come down and onto the stage and be part of the finale. If you don't wish to, do not raise your hand. There's no backing out at the end. But it will be a lot of fun. Now, there were a number of people organizations that made this happen, and I would like to thank them, and I'm trying very hard to remember all of them. The Howard and Bush Foundation, part of this and all the libraries in Rensselaer County that we went to prior to this, as a precursor to this performance, Capital Region Living Magazine, Stewart Shops, the New York State Council on the Arts, Partners in Dance, the New York State Dance Force, of course the Arts Center of the Capital Region, the Egg, and LNP Media. It's a lot, and plus all of the individual donations that we received in order to make this happen, and I know a number of you are here in the audience today. So these things don't come out of the blue. It really requires a fair amount of work to make these happen. I'm very excited about our backdrop. I think it's perfect because it means we can just fold them right out, carry them away, and go someplace else, and it fits in any kind of area, any kind of arena that we're going to be performing, where we're going to be performing. So I believe, and you know there's an intermission. Jill said there's an intermission, right? 10 minutes, so don't go too far away. 10 minutes only. I think that's it. You ready? We're going to have a good time.
Hello everyone and welcome to our production of Celtic Footprints. I'm delighted to see you all today and I hope you have as much fun enjoying the show as we had putting it all together. I'm Baibre McCarthy and I'm a Celt. I come from Ireland and indeed I think most people know that the Celts come from Ireland and Scotland. But what a lot of people don't realise is that the Celtic people actually began in Central Europe. And if you look at our wonderful backdrop here, our map shows this region that is now known as Slovakia and the Czech Republic, even as far as Austria and Switzerland. That's where they began. But because, like the Native American people, they didn't write things down. Not a lot is available about them in the history books. Their storytellers were the historians, and they were the ones who were in charge of passing on the history of the Celts. So that's what we're doing today for you. And our first story starts in that Central European region. And it's about a little girl named Marika. And it's a funny story, and I wanted to tell the children it is a funny story, although poor Marika has a very scary experience. So I don't want you to be too much afraid. It all turns out well in the end. Now, over here in our country, the Celtic people settled all the way along the Appalachian Trail. And of course, you know, they also are found in the cities of New York and Boston. But there's an old woman who lives in the mountains of Appalachia, and she claims she remembers the very beginnings of her people, way back in Central Europe. But that was thousands of years ago. So how could she remember that? I think it's because the stories are what she remembers most. They live in her, and they're a bond with her Celtic ancestry. Now, our first story today talks about how in the old days, when the harvest time arrived, young people would travel around the country and they would help the farmers to cut the wheat and the flax to bring it in for the winter. And after a hard day's work in the fields, the farmers would invite the workers into their homes, and the workers would get a good meal and a bed for the night. And in exchange, the workers would entertain the families with a story around the fireside after their meal. But there once was a girl named Marika who had no story to tell. She travelled around the country, a good, hard-working girl. But wherever she went, people closed their doors when they saw her coming, because she had no story to tell them. She knocked on doors, but people turned her away. Poor Marika didn't know what to do. Word spread all over the land. She wasn't welcome anywhere she went. The poor wee girl, one night she found herself all alone outside in the pitch black night, wondering what to do, when suddenly she saw three creatures, goblins, approaching, carrying a coffin. Oh, Marika burst into the nearest house, and the goblins couldn't get in. But they rearranged themselves, and they followed her into the house. Poor Marika was trembling with fear. "Save me," she said to the owners. "Oh, we'll help you, my dear," they said. And too late, Marika realized she had arrived at the goblin's house. They were the goblin family. They pushed her out the door and over the stone walls into the fields, where the thorn bushes tore at her clothes and scratched her skin. And then they said, "Who will help us to carry this coffin?" Oh, but Marika. Well, they pushed the coffin on her back. The poor girl tried to escape, but she couldn't. they made her carry that coffin all the way to the graveyard. Then they left the coffin on top of poor Marika while they dug the grave. And they dug it so deep that Marika thought she might get out from under it and get away. But they suddenly remembered and they said, who will go into this grave? Who but Marika? And they threw her in. Oh, the poor girl was terrified. She tried her best to get away, and she succeeded. But only for a moment. They remembered the coffin, and the goblins picked it up, and they carried it to the grave. Now who will get into this coffin, they said. Who but Marika? And they ran and they brought her back. And they tried to stuff her in. But my goodness, what a funny coffin. She wouldn't fit inside. Turn her around, said the leader. Try the other way. And they pushed and they pushed, and poor Marika fought to get away. And finally she escaped, but she was exhausted. Now she knew she had to find shelter for the night. And too late she realized she was back at the same goblin house. Ah, but we've given you a story to tell, said the Scriptures, and they all disappeared. But wherever Marika went from that day on, she was welcome in every house, because people wanted to see her come in and tell her wonderful story. And we are still enjoying it today. Now the Scriptures, as they call them, the goblins, are goblins or fairies, in fact. One of the books that I've written, I've quite a few collections of Irish stories, but one of them is leprechaun stories. But it's interesting because it was illustrated by a man from the Czech Republic, from Prague. And it was first published in the Czech language. And the Czech translation for leprechauns are Škripku leprechauny. So it is goblins or fairies or whatever. But it's interesting, if you've ever been to the Czech Republic or that region, you will find some remnants of the Celtic people. In Prague, for example, Wenceslas Square, there's a statue of King Wenceslas. You might be familiar with him from our Christmas carol, and he was a Celtic king. So we're now going to follow the footprints of the Celts from Central Europe all the way to northern France. And if you notice where we stop here with one of our footprints, it's in the state of Brittany. The Breton people still retain their Celtic ties. And because they're in the northwest of the country, the northwest wind blows very strong. And this story is about the northwest wind. And I, in fact, will take the part of the northwest wind in this story. And some of you, boys and girls out there, may have joined Ellen and I when we were at our library workshops. I see some people nodding their heads. I'm so glad, because we want you to help us out. You might remember at those library workshops you helped us by helping the farmer on her difficult journey to meet the northwest wind. Now today we're going to help her on her journey by calling out. So there's a pattern here. She has to visit the northwest wind 3 times. So 3 times we're going to help her on her journey. So when you hear me say, now let's help her on her journey, this is what we're going to say together. She had to crawl through the cold caves. Let's try that together. She had to crawl through the cold caves. The next thing she has to do is she had to fight the giant storms. Let's try that. She had to fight the giant storms. And the last thing she has to do, she had to climb the highest mountain. Let's try that. She had to climb the highest mountain. Excellent. So this story, as I mentioned to you, is about a farmer, and it does come from our area of northern France. But what's interesting too, I should add about all of these stories, is that there are different versions you will find in all the Celtic countries. And this one is our Northwest France story. So I would invite you now to sit back and listen carefully so that you can help the farmer on her journey to meet the northwest wind. There once was a farmer who worked in the fields with her family to get the land ready for planting the flaxseed. They plowed the fields, and they planted the flaxseed, and they worked well together, and the farmer was pleased. When all the seeds were in the ground, the rains fell and the sun shone and the flax began to grow. And it grew higher and higher, and the farmer was very happy. He was going to have a good crop to feed his family. But suddenly Nor'Uas, the northwest wind, began to blow, and he blew so hard that he blew all the flax away. Oh, the farmer was so upset. Oh, what am I going to do? She said. My family will starve. We did all this hard work and planted the flaxseed, and that wicked northwest wind, Nor'Uas, he blew it all away. Well, I'm going to go and have a chat with him. Nor'Uas, I'm coming. Well, she had to go on that difficult journey, so let's help her. She had to crawl through the cold caves. She had to fight the giant storms. But she was very determined, and she kept going. And then she had to climb the highest mountain. And when she reached the top, she saw Nor'Uas, and when she reached him, she was very angry. She said, "What do you mean? I did all this work planting these flax seeds. My flax blew up and you blew it all away. Don't worry. I'll give you a magic tablecloth. Take this. Your family will never be hungry again." Well, the farmer was so happy, she couldn't wait to try the magic. But she was so tired from her journey that she decided to stop at a hotel on the way to rest. And when she got to her room, she laid out her tablecloth and she wished for all her favourite foods. And when she pulled up that tablecloth, she got her favourite foods. She got giant pumpkins, large stalks of celery, and roly-poly potatoes. Oh, the farmer was so happy. Oh, she said, I'll try it again. And she laid out the tablecloth one more time. And this time, she wished for another favourite food of hers. And when she pulled up the tablecloth, she got squawking chickens. Chickens galore. She'd never be hungry again. Well, she thought she'd try the magic one more time. But when she laid out the tablecloth, the tiredness got to her and she thought she'd take a nap. And while she slept, she dreamed of the giant pumpkins, the roly-poly potatoes, the strong stalks of celery, and the squawking chickens. But while she slept, something happened to the magic. And when she came back and picked up the tablecloth, there was nothing. Oh, she was so angry. She said it must be that Norus. He must have taken the magic away. Well, I'm going to go back and talk with him again. Norus, I'm coming. Let's help her on her journey, everyone. She had to crawl through the cold caves. She had to fight the giant storms. But she's very determined. She keeps going. And she had to climb the highest mountain. And from the top, Norus saw her coming, and he said, uh-oh, here comes that angry farmer again. And when she met Norus, she said, what do you mean? You gave me a magic tablecloth with potatoes and pumpkins and celery and squawking chickens, and now all the magic is gone. Well, don't worry. I'm going to give you something even better. I'm going to give you a magic donkey. Look behind you. I think you'll like it. Well, the farmer was amazed. She shook the donkey's ear and gold poured out. She opened the donkey's mouth and gold poured out. Oh, she was so happy. She pounded the donkey on his back and gold poured out. Oh, she was delighted. She had so much gold she couldn't stand up. But while she was gathering all her gold together, something happened to the magic. And when the farmer decided to get some more gold, she shook the donkey's ear and nothing happened. Oh, she shook the donkey's tail and nothing happened. She picked up the donkey's foot and nothing happened. Oh, she was so upset. She said it must be that Norus. He must have taken the magic away again. Well, I'm coming, Norus. I'm coming back. Let's help her on her journey, everyone. She had to crawl through the cold caves. But she's very determined. She had to fight the giant storms. And she had to climb the highest mountain. And from the top, Norus saw her coming. And he said, uh-oh, she's here again. You gave me a magic donkey, she said, that was filled with gold. I had so much gold I couldn't stand up. And now it's gone. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to give you a magic stick, because it's the people at the hotel who are taking your magic things. While you're sleeping, they're swapping them. It's not me, but be careful with that stick. It's very powerful. It will, oh, don't be afraid of it. Come back and take that stick, and it will drive your enemies away. The power of it will keep them away from your magic objects. So she ran back to the hotel, and sure enough, the magic of the stick worked. It pushed them all away from her magic objects. It was such a powerful stick that the magic made the people all fall asleep. When they slept, they forgot all about the magic things that they had seen. Oh, the farmer was very happy. She pushed them all away. But then she thought, maybe I should push them further away to be safer. But when she went back this time, the magic was gone. The stick wouldn't work. Oh, the farmer was so upset. She said, "Now, Rose, I'm coming to get you." But this time, she decided she was going to take a shortcut. She avoided the caves and the storm, but she climbed that high mountain. And when she reached Norus, she gave him a piece of her mind. She said, "What do you mean? You gave me a stick that was supposed to drive all my enemies away, and the magic was supposed to work forever, but now it's gone. You gave me a magic tablecloth that was filled with all my favorite foods, and I'd never want for anything again, and now the magic is gone. You gave me that magic donkey that was filled with gold. I had so much gold I couldn't stand up, and now that's gone. So what are you going to do?" "I'm only teasing you, farmer. I enjoy your visits. I just wanted you to come back again. So this time I give you back your magic objects. Here's your magic stick. It will always work for you now. The magic will never go away, but don't stop at that hotel on the way home. I'll give you back your magic tablecloth. You'll always have all the foods you could ever want, whatever you wish for. You'll have giant pumpkins whenever you want them. You'll have roly-poly potatoes and strong stalks of celery. And of course, you'll have plenty of squawking chickens. But most important of all, I give you back your magic donkey." But the farmer was delighted. She tried the magic, and all the gold poured out of that donkey. And the farmer took her donkey and brought it home to her family, and she and her family and their donkey lived happily ever after. And of course, that old woman in Appalachia, she likes to tell that story, and she likes to say that the northwest wind is a friend of hers, and I wouldn't argue with her. She indeed is just as determined as that farmer was. But now for our next stories, in fact 3 of our next stories come from the islands in the western part of Europe, the places where we think that the Celts originated, but now you know better. But we're coming to the islands of Ireland and Scotland and Wales. And for our next story, we're going to be talking about the magical land under the waves. Celtic stories often talk about the magical land under the waves because the sea plays such an important part in their lives. And of course, there's a great lord of the sea named Manannán Mac Lird, and there are great stories about him. He had a magic sword called the Sword of Light, and he had a ship known as Wind Sweeper. that neither used sails nor oars to travel the sea. The Isle of Man, which lies between Ireland and England, still retains its Celtic culture, and the name comes from Manannán mac Lir himself. And in midsummer, the people on the Isle of Man celebrate this great Lord of the Sea with a great festival. Now, the woman from Appalachia, of course, she claims she knows Manannán mac Lir personally, and as I mentioned, I wouldn't argue with her. Celtic people are very determined indeed. But for our next story, we're going to be talking about the Selchies, the seal people. In other words, the seals who come from that magic land under the waves. And they are the magic seals who can shed their skin and become human for a while, but then they become lonesome for their own world under the sea. And some of you may be familiar with the wonderful movie, The Secret of Rowan Inish. And that movie was made by our own Schenectady man, John Sayles. And indeed it is a wonderful Celtic story, and it talks about the Selchies. So maybe you want to go home today and maybe rent it if you haven't seen it for a while. And this dance story that we're doing is part of Ellen and my original collaboration that Ellen mentioned years ago. This was a longer piece called Selchie, and we're doing just a little section of it for you today. And it really, as a friend of mine pointed out, is not so much a story as it's poetry for the dance. So we hope you now enjoy our story dance of the Selchie, the seal people. Oh, and I should mention that after this story dance, we will have our 10-minute intermission to let you all get up and move around for a bit. Thank you. "3,000 years ago, the Celtic tribes settled on the islands. They came to know the beat of the waves and developed strong ties with the sea. Over in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and the smaller islands off their coasts, the Celtic people know the magic of the sea and the creatures who live there. Powerful stories are told of the Selchies, the seals who sometimes shed their skins and come to live on shore amongst humans. Today, our story begins in the enchanted water world of the seals. We humans are sometimes lucky enough to watch these seals when they are unaware of our presence, as they play on the rocks, roll with the waves, and dance in the moonlight.
She
The Selkies do not live alone. Like the island people, their family ties are strong. They care for each other. Her family arrives, the other seals, the clan, old and young, all moving together to the pull and the rhythm of the tides. Five generations of one family in this clan. Machlir, the Celtic Sea Lord, watches over all of his creatures. He protects this underwater kingdom of quiet eddies and eel tails. The waves toss them back and forth as they glide in and out amongst the rocks and caves. Myself and my family dancing together under the moon, an old dance with no music but pulse music. Careful now, for there may be somebody watching from the rocks. She might be a dark one, a human who was born of a Selkie who came ashore. She tries to speak with the Selkie. The family stays close until they are sure that it is safe, and they may leave. The human tries to tempt and tease the Selkie, but it is all in vain, for the Selkie hears only the silvery sounds of the sea. The call of the waves is far stronger than that of the human, and the Selchie ignores her advances and rolls back into the sea. Human friends arrive and join in a rousing dance. The dancers sense the heat and the beat of the simmering sea. Their rhythm beckons to the Selkies. They leap like water and plunge into the ancient Celtic beat. Passion of the dance joins humans and Selkies together for the first time. The sea has spoken in them. Selkies and humans are engulfed in the dance. Her foot in merriment, cos she a cos na áhas. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we come to our 10-minute intermission. Before you move, I would ask you, I know it's going to be difficult for the people in front who are already stepping on what is our stage, but if you could avoid stepping on it, it would be helpful for the dancers. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed the first half. We'll see you back here ready to begin the second half in 10 minutes. Thank you.